Good day, everyone. This is Princess Shane, and I am the first reporter on this chapter. So, in this chapter, it talks about the theories on the origin of women's oppression. So, there are actually four topics that includes on this chapter. So, first is the woman's suppression, and second is the goddess worship to God's worship, and then the Eve and the other, and lastly is the shift of production. So now I'm gonna read first the introduction of theories on the origin of women's oppression. So the introduction, the low status of woman is something worth wondering about. How did it happen that half of the world's population is systematically discriminated? Why do women have lower status than men? Many theories explain why women are oppressed, but so far none are conclusive. Discussed in this chapter are some of the theories as compiled in the work of Rosalind Miles, a feminist writer, journalist, and historian who has researched the hidden role of women throughout history. So this is the introduction of this chapter about the theories on the origin of women's oppression. So now let's proceed about the woman's oppression. What does it really mean, and why does it woman being oppressed? So according to my research, oppression is the power of authority which unjust or cruel. So in other words, oppression is treating people, or especially women, treating them in a cruel or unfair way. So oppression is repeated experience, widespread and systemic injustice. Like for example, slavery, apartheid, lack of a right to vote, nor violence. So in addition, here's the definition about women's oppression. So I'll just read it. Women's oppression is an injustice act toward individual, especially women, in order to force to do something by cruel way. Women does not have freedom. They don't have freedom to do anything what they want to. Also, they don't have right or equality of anything. This injustice act can make the woman down, depression, or another mental pressure. So now let's proceed about the low status of women. So what is the status of women as compared to men in the society? So actually, men and women have different status in society based on circumstances. So if a woman is more accomplished than a man, the woman is given a higher status. But in many situations, men are accorded a higher status due to social traditions. That is why woman oppression is one of the issues which occurs for centuries without any concrete solution to solve it yet. Even in the history of Roman and Greek, women have been known as man's property. So they have owned by a man's property. Women have to obey their husband's commands. They should have to follow the commands of their husbands, and almost have no freedom to do their own desires. What I have said earlier, they don't have freedom or equality of everything, of what they want to do or what desires they want to do. So women's oppression becomes one of serious problem that still occur in present days. So yeah, maybe until now it still exists and it still happens. And also, many stories about oppression toward women in society can prove that women's oppression still does exist. Exactly. So, the low status of women has been a topic of grave discussion for many years in the past. It encompasses various burning issues of a girl and woman education. So, education, maternal health, economic empowerment of females, and the role of women in the family, community, politics, and many more. So every person deserves the same rights, regardless of his or her gender. Aside from the basic rights, one merits due to humanity. One must also give value to the traditional role of women. Women are crucial in food production and preparation. For most of humanity's collection history, women ensured that the survival of the species through foraging and gathering activities. So women bear children and, for the most part, raise their children from infancy up to their early years. So women are also a source of the cultural and emotional education of children. Teaching them how to navigate the social order, it is not only the woman's rules that make them important. It is also their biology. So women bear part essential DNA that makes us human. So society needs to understand that a woman is they are the key to the survival of human species. She is the backbone. Woman is the backbone of the development of civilizations. When the status of woman improves, the quality of lives improves for everyone. So now let's proceed about the goddess worship to God worship. So one prominent theory on the oppression of women concerns the shift of paradigms. From ancient civilizations that worshipped the goddess to the male suppression of this goddess. Indeed, mysterious woman-centric cults existed prior to the phallocentric cult. The progression from female-centric to male-centric worships was a slow and violent process. It is one theory on the root of women's oppression. So, women were less valued and their status were threatened with the expansion of phallus worship around 1500 BC. She explains that early civilizations' first great gods were women. There is evidence of the worship mother's goddess figure 5,000 years ago in the major civilizations of the world. So this theory of early goddess-based social organization stipulates that the worship of the mother goddess lasted for as long as people experienced the development of life as a mystery and a gift. At the same point, human beings changed the way they saw and experienced life. A major paradigm shift was thought to have occurred the moment people started to focus on the empirical rather than the mythical. So this new understanding of cause and effect was another way of seeing reality. So this is the end of my topic. For the continuation of the report, let's proceed to another reporter. Thank you.
So good day. At this moment, I'm going to tackle the continuation of this chapter, which is all about a shift to production. So, this is the last topic of this chapter. So, a shift to production. So, when we say shift, it is something that is moving, or it is a transfer, or it changes into something. Likewise, a plausible theory of suppression of women. Although agriculture is more stable than hunting and gathering, it requires the investment of manpower and a longer period of work in one area for an extended amount of time. This manpower must be committed to the work and the community that is feeding. At that moment, that women are really not into agriculture, even though at that moment agriculture was the main source of their living. So maybe one of the reason because agriculture requires manpower and longer period of time to work, because we all know that women should only work 8 hours a day, so it is the minimum of working hour as a woman. So and so on. Human reproduction became for the purpose of creating more workers became more crucial task in society. It is important to keep women at home, produce and raise children. Reproduction had to be protected and controlled. Following agriculture requires manpower, so it means it has to be done by a lot of people or a lot of workers. So at when productivity increases with the advent of new farming processes like animal husbandry and flagging-based farming, more laborers were needed to take advantage of wealth creation from the greater productivity. So it means that because of the farming processes like animal husbandry and flagging-based farming, most of the people became wealthy. Or so in the following, women raising children were further constrained from participating in the employment when paid work began to take place. Bringing home cash was becoming necessary for survival. Men's role as paid workers were viewed more essential, while women's function as housewives were perceived unproductive. But in the earlier timeline of history, society has a higher regard for women than today. Women were venerated for their fertility and were worshipped for their power to bear life. It means that on that day, women were worshipped or has given value because of their ability to raise children or to carry children. The subjugation of women is not essential or necessary state. The liberation of women from this inequality should be discussed because change can and must happen. But change will only happen if people are made aware on how the status of women was constructed. Oppression of women is made possible because of existing systems that are orient people toward oppressing women, not because women are fundamentally weaker. It's true that change supposed and must to be done. It is because men and women are just the same, and there are things that women can do which men cannot, and then there are also things that women cannot do where men can do. So equality should be done or should be possessed in this era.
Hello everyone, I'm Isabel and I am one of the reporter of the chapter 10. So the topic that I will discuss is the Eve and the other. In Western religion, it also influenced the negative perception of women as evidence in the Jude-Christian story of Eve being the first woman and its mythic variation. The same story template in Pandora. In both stories, women were perceived as the cause of example of mankind because of their weakness. The fall of Mother Goddess, the rise of phallocentric worship. So what is phallocentric worship? Phallocentric worship is centered on or emphasizing the masculine viewpoint. The rise of phallocentric worship and the negative implication of women's rule in the Christian Bible story, well, the negative perception of women. Women were viewed of lesser values than men or were deemed the root of all suffering. They were perceived to be flawed-minded, manipulative, or with no morals fortitude. As shown by the stories of Eve and Pandora, woman was casted as the barrier of suffering because she was weak-willed and could not be trusted. She could not be allowed to be left alone, lest she could cause some trouble. Women were the catalyst for men to lose their reason and responsibility. Therefore, men convinced themselves that women were unfit or capable to run government standards for literature and commerce, be priests, or be left to be their own devices. What is misogynistic treatment? So, misogynistic is a feeling showing or characterized by hatred of or prejudice against women. People are inclined to believe that women are dangerous and must be controlled if not suppressed. This belief is especially true of their sexuality in numerous and significant instances. Women have been referred to as the sex that seduces men and make him lose his orientation towards the true good, which is the eternal life beyond the flesh. Although it is puzzling why some of the world's religions are so biased against women, the fear theory offers some explanation for it. So, what is the fear theory? So, fear theory is a human belief in God is only due to illusion and to avoid the fear generated by the misconception God was worshipped, which resulted in the birth of religion. So Miles speculates that male supremacy does more than imply female inferiority. It demands it. How then was that demand brought home to each and every woman? The first step had to be eradication of all traces of women's previous superiority. This meant that onslaught on the worship of Mother Goddess, on her devotes, and by the extension to women's right to rule or command.